One of my favorite pastimes is like these long car rides home with my dad. My pops like worked a total of like 60 to 70 to 80 hours a week between like both of his jobs. So like every now and then he actually found time to come pick me up from school and daycare and whatnot. And in those cars, what we would do, we would be big on music. So my thing was hip hop. So in order to connect with me, he would play a lot of hip hop. One of my favorite artists was Pac. Some of his favorite artists and genres were Isley Brothers, Donny Hathaway, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. So the thing that, I see you. So the thing that actually stood out to me about hip hop was like how innovative it was, how fresh it was, how raw it was, but most importantly, like how honest and rebellious it was. So those are the things that set with me. But of course, all my pops heard is like AKs, big booties, and gold chains. And it's like, yo, that's cool. Well, not the AK, but like, you know, so the rest is cool. And so like one day we literally ride home and a song comes on the radio and all I hear is like, even as a crack fiend, mama, you always were a black queen. And the line set with me for a few reasons. One, my mother actually battled with addiction and as well as served time in prison. Two, here it was me at like 9 years old and hearing this man, a black man at that, speak about addiction, the thing that I associated with damage and abandonment, and also affirming his mother in the same sentence. And my mind really couldn't process how could you affirm the same very person that hurt you? Like, how can those things coexist? But no matter what, I still knew in that moment like I wanted to tell stories, and I didn't know what kind of stories I wanted to tell, but I knew that I wanted to like tell something that hit people as hard as those lines actually hit me. So around like 2009 and 2010, I'm at Cedar Valley College. I do a poetry slam, and originally I didn't want to do it, but they said it was like $200, so I signed up to do it. And I didn't know anything about poems, but I knew how to write short stories. I thought like poetry was like full of all these dead old white people. So I literally signed up for the slam. I won the slam, and one of my friends takes me to introduce and meet these two guys who would like become very impactful and imperative men in my life by the name of Will Ritchie, as well as by the name of Professor Darius Frazier. So these two dudes, they took me to this event called Diverse Lounge, and Diverse Lounge is like this open mic. It's a community-based thing, but it's really like youth-driven. And my dad actually went with me that night as well. I perform a poem. My dad meets me at the end of the stage with my mentor, Will Ritchie, and he says, yo, this is like a really great event that y'all got going here. Like, yo, this is dope, because he actually wants to be a writer. And my dad, my mentor, he actually stops my dad in his sentence, and he says, no, he doesn't want to be a writer. He is a writer. And that was like a really powerful statement, because I think in life we always talking about the things that we want to be, the things that we can potentially be, the things that we possibly can be. But in this moment, it was more of a definitive statement, because I am, I do. Therefore, I exist in all of these things. And so my mentor was like, yo, you should be a teaching artist. Now, first of all, in my community college, I'm not sure what age groups we have in here. Like, yo, I took this Acuplacer and I took about a year to test out a developmental reading. Also, I was on academic probation and academic suspension and academic whatever kept me out of school for like literally my college year until I dropped out. So I was like, what do I know about being in education of anything? So eventually he says, yeah, you be a teaching artist. And pretty much what the teaching artist does is it's like this crossroad between educator and artist. And you bring those things together, take your art form, integrate those things into lesson plans, into after school programs, during school, and all those things. Students can be literally from like 10 to 20 people in this classroom. So in these classrooms, like one of the things that we'll do is first, I'll try to read a poem that might resonate with that crowd. It could be about anything. My poem of choice was something about my mother. It was like a very angry poem back then. And the second thing, I would ask every student person in that room to introduce themselves, and one of the hardest questions is to tell us one thing that you love about yourself. And of course, they gave everything that they disliked about themselves. The last step will be to do a workshop that was based on affirmation. And pretty much this workshop is something that y'all can even do in like y'all kickbacks or hangouts and whatnot. It literally requires like 5 steps. So step 1 and 2 is pretty much for you to say 2 things that you know to be true. It can literally be anything. Step 3 is to tell about an experience or an obstacle that you're going through that you want to overcome. Step 4 is to tell us about a common misconception or stereotype that has been placed on you, and how do those things make you feel. And it could be about race or anything. And step 5 is to have the entire room stand up, and these papers are anonymous, so nobody wrote their names on them, and exchange papers. And we exchange papers for like 5 to 10 seconds till you don't have your paper in your hand anymore. And on this 5th step, all of these students are reading stories. They're reading these misconceptions, they're reading these stereotypes. And our final part in that assignment is to write these letters of affirmation to each other. And in this moment, you have a lot of kids who are learning about compassion. You learn a lot of kids who are hearing the stories of others. And you also are hearing your own story come out the mouth of another person, and them actually validating you and your experience. And these kids are hearing experience they never heard before. Some of these kids are hearing experiences that they have heard before, and they realize that I'm not alone in this moment. And sure enough, in every class, it's always like one hard head, and literally it's always one person that gives me a little bit of trouble. And this kid in this class is named Malik. He literally tells me, yo, I don't write no poems. I don't do none of that stuff like that. That's weird white folk stuff. And I was like, expressing yourself was weird white folk stuff? Okay, cool, I'm white. So literally, I asked him after that, I said, okay, cool, so what do you do? He said, I don't write poems, but I do rap. I said, all right, cool. Well, do you want to rap? He was like, no. I was like, cool, who do you listen to? He says, yo, one of my favorite artists is Tupac. I said, cool, well, since you don't want to rap, can you at least tell me a favorite lyric from Tupac Shakur? He said, all right, I got you. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, no love for my daddy because the coward wasn't there. He passed away and I couldn't cry because my anger wouldn't let me feel for a stranger. They say I'm wrong and I'm heartless, but all along I was looking for a father, he was gone. And the whole room gets quiet. And they literally tell me this is the most that we've ever heard him speak. And I ask him, why does that line relate to you so hard? Like, what is it about that line? What do you love about Pac? And he said, well, he got shot 5 times and he lived. And I was like, yeah, that don't really work all the time like that, you know? So it's not a good thing. And I said, so like, what are some, you resonated with that line? Like, what do those things mean to you? And he said, but no, on a real note, my dad left my mom when he found out that she was pregnant, and he hasn't been back ever since. And nowadays, I feel like my mom resents me for his absence. And I asked him in that moment, I said, so how does that right there make you feel? And he says, yo, I don't know, but some days, like, I want to die, but I don't like really want to like off myself, but I don't want to exist. And I literally tell him, yo, write that down. Like, that's hard, that's dope, Like, that's poetry within itself, And in that moment, it actually taught me something, that it was not so much of my job to teach these kids how to write poetry, because if anything, poems are mere expression. Literally, poetry is you hitting your snooze button like 3 times on 75 and trying to get something to eat before you go into work and knowing that you're already late. And then tripping when your boss asks you to stay late. Like, it's literally self-expression. But I realized that my job was to teach these kids how to find the magnitude within their own story in a world that tells them that they are not enough as is. And here this kid was who was using hip hop as a conduit to emotional literacy. And I thought that was something that was like so dope. And I couldn't even figure those things out at 12 years old, at 16, or any of those things. And so I leave you with one of the questions that he asked me. He literally says, yo, Mr. Henderson, I know you did a poem about your mom, so you like old, like 27, like, how do you feel about her? And I literally wanted to answer all these perfect answers, but I honestly, I looked at him and I told him, like, I don't know. And that was like one of the most powerful things that an adult can tell a child is, I don't know, I don't have the answers, However, if I was able to talk to him, and something I want to leave y'all on is something that I figured out later with my journey on emotional development, and it was a poem for my mother. And it says, whenever I'm over you, I'm reminded otherwise of what it is to be afraid of dark and to walk in light, how self-doubt invites itself over like a long-lost friend, have no pictures of birth, Said to call it birth will be a lie, that you had so much death in your body that the delivery room felt like a morgue. How you are many words, yet leave people feeling like unanswered questions. And I have many questions, those that tug at my black heart like front church pew conviction. Like, what is your favorite color? Did your mother cook on Sunday dinner? If so, did you eat at tables together? Did she tell you what it would be like to move through this world as a black woman? How entitlement would hover around your black body like deep south summertime humidity? Did she tell you that you were beautiful, and not for a dark girl, but just beautiful? And how you held legacy in your face as if you knew that it was hereditary? How you will be all of love and laughter, how you are no house guest, how your skin is no sin, how you are bathing in the stench of yourself, how at times that I lack confidence, and there are days that I yearn to be as deep as the stories within my poems. Did you know that my father worked a total of 70 to 80 hours a week, so much that he hardly had time to enjoy the life that it afforded him, that I adapted that battle and wore it like crack armor in my first marriage, walked with identity made of all things that could be taken away so easily? Did she tell you how our first lesson in strength was defined as how much that one can endure and not break? In 2017, I watched my father break every week. A man that could hold the world in the palm of his hands, I watched him depart from his skin before sunrise 3 days a week for dialysis and still be a perfect man in face. And how in 30 years, I've never seen my father cry. However, when his mother died, the levees in his heart broke. It was that day that I learned that silence was very loud and orange, and that it could set a room ablaze. Do you know that my grandmother inquired more times about me in 1 year than I did her in 27? How I watched the rough hands lower her body into the ground, and how the regret was as deep as her plot. Do you know that I passed through that neighborhood and never thought to stop by, wash a dish, do laundry, cut yard, or even say hello? Do you know on most days I have not forgave myself? Have you forgave yourself? Do you know that forgiveness is a sacrificial offering to self? Thank you.